A very good evening, one and all. Welcome to the Buddhist Mahavihara Facebook page. We are here this evening to listen to a new speaker. Uh, this speaker is from the States, from the United States, and he was also introduced to us from another speaker who was with us, Bante Chandananda from San Francisco. And today we have Professor Sailesh Maharjan, who is now based in the United States. And apparently, we got him at a very wrong time because it's now, I believe, 5 a.m. Uh, in California, where Professor Sailesh is. Let me see whether I can get Professor Sailesh online. Yeah, I think Professor Sailesh is here. Oh, good morning, Prof. Sailesh. This
Good
is
morning, sir.
welcome to Buddhist Mahavihara's Facebook page. We got live right now, and sorry to wake you up so early in the morning. It's 5 a.m. for you.
Yes, it is. It is pretty early.
Yeah, sorry. So, but because of the time difference, we don't have a choice. It's 8:30 p.m. here now in Malaysia. So
Good.
let's get straight into it. Let me introduce Professor Sailesh. Professor Sailesh is originally from Kathmandu, Nepal. He became a monk at the age of 12 and went to Sri Lanka for Buddhist education under the supervision of Agga Mahapandita, most venerable Kutugoda Dhammavasa Mahanaikatera. He pursued his primary education at the Loka Dhamma Chaitya Pirivena, Sri Lanka, and secondary education, including a BA in psychology from the University of Peradeniya. He completed his Rajakya Pandita Royal Pandit exams administered by the by the Oriental Language Society of Sri Lanka in 2010. He worked as a visiting lecturer in Peradeniya University for 2 years, and then moved to United States to pursue further education and also to teach Buddhism at the Sambuddha Loka Buddhist Vihara, Riverside, California. He received his master's in clinical psychology from the California State University, San Bernardino, in 2017. After 5 years of service in the United States, uh, Professor Sailesh retired from monastic life and continued with graduate education and to promote Buddhist principles beyond the monastery as a professor and also as a researcher. Currently, he works as an adjunct faculty, in the Department of Psychology at the California State University. And in addition, he conducts various online and in-person Dhamma classes at several Buddhist temples in the United States. So, without much ado, I would now like to invite Professor Sailesh to start this evening's Dhamma sharing. Professor?
Thank you, Mr. Tilak. um, I must say good morning to you guys because I'm in the morning time zone, and uh, it's a great pleasure to join this online Dhamma forum, especially the temple that I have great respect to, uh, Mahavihara, because when I was learning how to give talks in English, one of my mentor was uh, Kirindi Sri Dhammananda Bante, and I learned a lot from his speech. When I was in Sri Lanka, I was listening to his Dhamma talk to deliver English Dhamma lessons. So I was very excited to receive the invitation, and today we are here to talk about one of the most important topics in Buddhism, because uh, in Buddhist practice we have principles that does not rely on any kind of gods or any kind of creator, any kind of savior, but we mainly rely on our daily life, the way we change our behavior, the way we improve our human condition. And like the Buddha would say, atta dipa bhava atta, Sarana, Ananya Sarana. You have to be lamp or island. Those are the two terms for deeper for yourself and not someone else. Do not rely on others. And Atta Sarana, Ananya Sarana. You are the resort. You are the shelter for yourself, nobody else. So when you think from that perspective, how do we improve our life? How do we change our condition of life? And in that explore, one thing we look at is what made me different from other individuals. What is the difference between me and other people? So we go to Buddhist principles, and there are three main principles that we look at: Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. Those are the Pali terms. And I prefer to use Pali terms because my training comes from Theravada Buddhism. So you may hear me using some of those Pali terms, and I'll try my best to include the translations, the meaning for those Pali terms. And forgive me, I'm having a cup of coffee at the same time so I can stay alert for this entire Dhamma session. Now, Sila Parami or Sila Paramita, that's the topic I'm assigned to talk about. And when you talk about Sila Parami, I'm sure most of we are familiar with this story that one Brahmin, and when I say Brahmin, during the Buddha's time, these are the scholars. These are the people who tend to have so much power politically, so much power socially and economically. So, besides being a group of influence in society, they also have great interest in new teachings. And there's so many times, many suttas, many encounter with the Buddha, they come to the Buddha and ask important questions. So one of the questions by this Jata Brahmin, the scholar, he asked the Buddha was like, Anto Jata Bahijata, Jataye Jatita Paja, Tang Tang Kotama Puchami. I think the another term is like Kankang Gotama Puchami, King Imang Vijate Jata. The meaning of this is, it's interesting, inside is tangle, outside is tangle. People are caught in this entanglement. I ask you, Venerable Sir, how to get over this entanglement or how to untangle these tangles. So it's like a riddle. You hear a lot of tangle, entangle. So the point is, we are so complicated inside our mind. We are complicated outside of our mind, which is our society. How do I overcome this uh, confusion? How do I overcome this tangling, this conflict inside and outside? And Buddha gave a simple answer. His reply was, Sile patithaya naro sapanyo chittang panyang chibhawe. Ata pinipako bhikkhu so imang vijite jatang. And Buddha explained, there's a simple principle you can overcome this tanglement. Excuse me. And what is the solution for this conflict and entanglement? Well, Buddha gave simple principle. Well, you have to establish yourself in good virtues. Now I'll look into the definition of sila in next slide. So you have to overcome by establishing. So sile patithaya. You have to establish yourself in sila, virtue, or conduct, or behavioral and verbal discipline. Chittang panyang chibahawi. After establishing yourself to those virtues, then you cultivate your mind. Then ata pinipako bhikkhu, use your effort. And when Buddha says bhikkhu, he's addressing the monks, but it does not mean these teachings are solely for monks. These are for any human being who aspire to seek that liberation from the samsara or the suffering. So atapinikpago bhikkhu, use your effort, you be ardent about your life. So imang vijitaya jatang. That is the person, those are the people who can free themselves from these tangles. So that's the point. That's the reply for that Brahmin. And Buddha goes on with some other principles. Now, I use this stanza or this verse as the topic for my talk because this is the basis for the entire encyclopedia, only encyclopedia we have from ancient time, the path of purification or Visuddhi Magga, uh, authored by Venerable uh, Buddha Gosa. So if you look at the book, it is a huge description about Buddhist principles and commentaries on those different topics. But Buddha Gosa used this stanza to describe the entire sutta, entire principles of Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. It goes in a lot of detail. Now, I'm not here to talk about the entire uh, description, but I want to focus more how do we use this teaching for our daily life, and like the topic I was assigned in a cultivation of morality. And I'll go back there in a minute. Now, the definition of sila, you can look at Pali definition, and in one of my favorite book is authored by Venerable Polvatte Buddhadatta. He has a Pali Akaradi, which gives the nice meaning for both those Pali terms. Now, sila in that textbook, the particular dictionary, is described as complete uh, freedom from all kind of misconducts that happens from your behavior and also your verbal actions. So sila is mainly focused to discipline our behavior and also our speech. So that's where it goes to. And that's why it is also called, in most translation if you find, sila is virtue, is the quality that needs to be cultivated every day and continue to improve. And it also refers to good habit of staying away from uh, misconducts, staying away from behaviors that could be harmful to yourself, that could be harmful to other people, that could be harmful to both of them. By definition, when I say harmful to yourself, harmful to others, and harmful to both parties, is the definition of uh, kusala, or wholesome conduct. Now, I want to distinguish between wholesome and punya, the kusala and punya, because when you think of punya, you're trying to accrue merit. Like you do dana, you do sila, you follow those principles because you have some kind of desire that you want to get some result, the positive result in the future. And if you have that attachment to your action, we consider them as punya. Why? The result of punya would be good experience, good karma. But kusala goes beyond punya. Kusala and punya, they're not the same thing. Why? Because when you think of punya, you are expecting, or you will receive something as the result of your action, your righteous deed. In kusala, you're learning to let go. You're learning to overcome bad behaviors. You're learning to overcome the attachment with the object that you're holding on to. And you're learning to purify your mind. So that's the kusala. That makes it different. So sila is also considered as a practice of kusala kammani, right? That's how you look at the definition. And the other term that I have to briefly mention here is parami, or in Pali, or in Sanskrit, paramita. Now, paramita is generally translated as perfection. I prefer the word full completion. Again, I look at the definition in Pali text by those Pali expert. So parami, the word is completing something to its full extent. That's what parami means. And full completion and actualizing, perfecting the precepts, perfecting those virtues. And perfection could be sometimes misleading for people, those who are in this journey. So somebody who are aspiring to become enlightened, perfection could be little misguiding. The reason is that when you say perfect, it seems now you have nothing else to do with that activity. So to me, it could be misleading when you say parami is that like you're done, you're perfected it. Well, you will be perfected after you accomplish your goal, like after you have reached the highest state of that enlightenment, after you completed, um, you received sotapanna, sakadagami, anagami, and arhat. So those are four stages of enlightenment. And when you reach the highest state of that enlightenment, then you consider, okay, I have perfected. Before you get there, you are still in practice. Now, the practice of virtue is not always perfect until you reach that highest stage, and this is motivating. Why I have very long history growing up in Sri Lanka and among Sri Lankan communities, and also many other Buddhist communities. And in every Buddhist communities, I think it should be similar to Malaysian community. Those who guys are following Theravada Buddhism, anytime you go to a temple and there's a bante, you before you start any ceremony, you observe five precepts, right? You starting from panadipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami to all the way down uh, to suramere majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. So you take those five precepts. Now, when you take those precepts, you have to keep in mind these precepts are perfect on its own. What is not perfect is your practice. What is not there is your part, your role in those precepts. You observe five precepts. Let's say you took a vow. Those are the five vows, similar to vows, like you promise that you don't kill living beings, you don't hurt anybody, and you also take promise that you don't want to lie, you won't lie, you don't steal. So all those precepts, I will talk about those precepts briefly. So you take those precepts, but by accident or because of your lifestyle you live in, you broke one precept. Now if it is already perfect, when you break one precept, that doesn't sound you are congruent with the word perfection, right? Because if you were perfect, you would not break it. Because you're not perfect, you are not there yet, you broke a precept. Now what do? Do I go to hell because I broke the precept? Not necessarily. Not necessarily it will lead to such a strong punishment. That's why we consider precepts as it's the process. We don't look at them as perfection. It's like we're completing to its full extent. We're learning that, well, I'm human being, I'm not immune to mistakes. I make that mistake. Next time when I go back to temple, I promise again, and I try my best not to break those precepts. So that's why I like to look at those precepts from more like actualizing. We're trying to receive the highest level of its precepts. And the best way to observe precepts, according to the Buddha's teaching, is that when Visakha, the lady, very popular lady, he asked from the Buddha one day, Bante, how should I follow precept? What would be the best way to practice these virtues? And Buddha told the lady Visakha, well, if you can practice precept like the Arhantas, that would be the best. Don't be somebody like uh, the shepherd who look after the cattle of others, spend all day working for those cattle, taking care of those animals. At the end of the day, you take them back to the owner. You never get to enjoy the milk, the dairy product that comes from those cattle because you don't own them. So if you follow precepts like the shepherd, you do that because probably you want to show somebody that you're following precepts. Probably you want to prove somebody that you're doing it. But inherently, you're not trying to improve yourself, so you don't enjoy the result of those precepts. So Buddha encouraged to use them. I give the example of Arhanta, whose nature is genuinely, they don't break any rules. They are inherently perfected because every step they make, every move they make in their life is perfected. They never hurt anybody. They cannot hurt anybody by intention. If anybody hurts any arahanta, those enlightened person hurt somebody, that will be always by accident, not by intention. So if we can get there, that would be considered like perfecting. Now, in the journey of enlightenment, we look at parami in different levels, right? So that's what we call Uh, Paramita can start from ordinary or parami itself, upaparami or superior version, or the paramatta parami, that's highest stage of highest level of perfection. Now, when you look at these three stages, parami, upaparami, paramatta parami, now somebody who are aspire to become the Buddha, who wants to become the Buddha and free yourself from the samsara, you have a long journey to go by perfecting, by improving, actualizing these paramitas. In Theravada, we talk about 10 of them. In Mahayana, they have 6 of them. So the difference is only they have removed some of those paramitas. But from Theravada perspective, we look at these 10 paramita. Dana, Sila, Nekkhamma, Prajna, Virya, Khanti, Maitri, Satya, Upekha, Aditthana. So I'm not going to talk about all those 10 paramitas, but my focus will be one, that is Sila Parami. Now, what is the purpose of this Sila? Now, what is the purpose of this Sila if you think of sorry about that glitch. So what is the purpose of Sila if you ask yourself? Kimatani Kimatyani bante kusalani silani kimani sangsani. So this is a question Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha. Bante was asking, what is the use, what is the purpose of practicing this wholesome precepts, wholesome virtues? And the Buddha replied, well, if you want to free yourself from remorse, avipatisarathani, you want to free yourself from avipatisara. That means you do something and you regret. That remorse is very powerful. And in a way to free yourself from those remorse is practicing those kusala sila. Now it goes on all the way to the enlightenment. So Buddha continues explaining, why do I need to free myself from precept? Because it leads to free from remorse, it leads to joy, rapture, leads to tranquility and happiness. Now, happiness here is not the sensual happiness, it's more mental happiness. It comes from that appeasement of mind. You're not fighting with those defilements, trying to free yourself from those defilements. And that's where Buddha continues talking about these precepts. That's where I like to highlight this part, free from remorse. Now, there are times if you ask yourself, um, well, when I do things, what brings me regret? What makes me sad about my life? There are things that you do, you think about it. I made those mistakes, and that brings those sadness. I missed some good opportunities that made me sad. So, if you want to free yourself from those sadness, and it could lead to depression, it could lead to anxiety, because if you hold on to those past experience, past mistakes too much, that will debilitate, that will kill your potential to do better in your present life. If you worry too much about the future, if you think too much about the future, fearing that something might go wrong, you might do something harmful to others, that is anxiety. So if you want to remove those fear of the future and also regret from the past, Sila will be one good solution for us. Now, is Sila connected to Buddhist principles? Is Sila related to what we practice, what we call the core Buddhist teaching? It definitely does. Now, in uh, itemizing those the Eight Noble Path, Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa, Samma Vacha, all the way down to Samma Samadhi, Samma Panya, Samma Sati and Samma Samadhi, and there's two more, Samma Panya and Samma Vimutti. Those 8 noble path, which part belongs to these Sila? I put 4 of them, but typically they look at 3 of them, Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, and Samma Ajiva. Now, the word Samma is hard to translate in English. The best word I found or I use in general is right speech. Now, that right refers to things that we do which is free from any kind of complaint from yourself, from others, and from both parties. How do you make it the opposite of micha vacha? Now, micha vacha means something that is harmful to yourself, harmful to others. Now, samma vacha is one of the principles. Now, when we talk about these eight noble paths, you cannot separate one from the other. They are interconnected. So you cannot have samma vacha, right speech, without having samma ditti, right understanding. Now, let's assume that you already developed some level of right understanding about the Dhamma. You realize that life has that impermanency, therefore I need to change whatever perception I have about my life. And you go on and you get to the point where you now think about, how do I improve my speech, samma vacha. But there are some defilements, there are some problem in our speech. Language is one of the most powerful tool in this world, how that people can mislead and produce a lot of harm to others. And there are times, and Buddha's teaching, he explained that language is like a double bladed sword. It can cut yourself, and it can also cut the person who's listening to you. So you have to be very careful how you use it. Why it is so powerful? You may hurt somebody physically. Like, let's say, you even, joculously, you spank somebody, you hurt, you slap somebody. That pain will last for a very brief time. But the word that could be so harmful, it can lead to so much pain and long lasting damage to that person. So what vacha word is very powerful. How do we pollute this language? Language is so powerful. Right now, I'm connecting with you guys using language, and you understand me. Even though I am from Nepal, I'm here in the US. uh, I'm in the US, you still connect with me, because of the language, because of the language benefit that we have. I think we got disconnected. There you go. There you go. So that's the problem with online classes, online talks, right? So I'm coming. Let's go back to word. How do you pollute this word? How do we misuse language? Well, there are times that people use language to lie. That's one problem. You use speech to misguide other people. That's one pollution. Lying, or musawada. That's one problem. And the number two is pisuna vacha. You tell things that will bring conflict between people. That's parusa vacha. You use language to hurt other people by using harsh language, with hurtful language. And sampapalapa, you talk about things that is useless, that is void of meaning. Now, those are four ways people pollute language. And the practicing precept is, how do I stay away from those four pollution of language? Well, the opposite of lying is telling the truth, bringing truth to the community, that way you unite them, where you tell things that is meaningful, that is protective to our people. Now, it starts from the individual level, social level, communal level, and the nation level. Individual level, you enrich yourself by truth. You're finding facts, relying on facts, and that's very powerful. Now, I'm in the country which has the most cases of this COVID-19, in compared to the world. We have almost about 3 million. I think we passed 3 million cases in the United States, and we have over 130,000 people died because of this COVID-19. I don't want to blame one person or one community, but I want to blame lies. I want to blame lies, those who are spreading or those who are promoting those lies, whether it is a political parties, whether it is an individual, whether it is community. So if you look at the news, you will see a lot of conflict between the nation, conflict between these science, the doctors, and also the political parties. It is because of lie, how people are not taking care of themselves. If you watch news that happening currently in the United States, you will see how people are aggravated by these lies. They're not given the fact, and they fight for their freedom, fight for their speech, fight for their right to live freely, not wearing masks, not maintaining social distancing. And surprisingly, day before yesterday, because of this conflict between true and lie, there's about 60,000 cases within one day. Now, why that happened? what was the reason behind it? To me, it's like it's because the spread of lie. It's so contagious, so harmful, so dangerous. It can affect many people, and it can cause it can cost somebody's life. So that's one negative outcome in communal level of lies. And in family level, because of lies, there could be conflict. You start lying and there will be more gap between the family connection, and you can have conflict between partners. So that could be another consequences. So lie could be dangerous, and Buddha promotes the opposite of lies. When you have nothing to say, try to maybe keep quiet. You don't need to promoting those lies. Try to advocate for truth. And the next one is uh, Pisuna Vacha, Parusa Vacha, and Sampapalapa. The other pollutions that, Pisuna Vacha is telling things that will create division. Well, the Buddhist practice would be use the opposite, try to promote uh, connection, unity between people. How do I use my language to bring unity? How do I speak about uh, information I know that brings people together? That's the opposite of practicing Pisuna Vacha. Parusa Vacha, saying things that's hurtful to other people. Now, one thing I learned from my teacher, Kodugar Dhamma Bante, um, that he always advocate to use language to bring peace in their mind. And in his term, he used to say this, Nela kanna sukha hadayangama pori bahujana kanta bahujana manapa. If you can use language in those form, you are practicing good precepts. You're developing this virtue of speaking truth. Nela, it's very soft, speaking soft language. Kanna sukha, it's very soothing to your ears. Kanna sukha, hadayangama, the word that approaches your heart. It's not only the word, but it can touch people's heart. Pori, it's pure. There is no any cursing words, no any hurtful words. Uh, Pori, bahujana kanta, it's not only good for few people, but for many. Many people can enjoy your words. Bahujana kanta, bahujana manapa. It also produces more joy to many people. So that's the quality of language. And he also taught me that when you talk, that's from Buddhist teaching. If you are talking to one person, your voice should be audible to one person. If you're talking to 10 people, your voice should be audible to 10 people. You don't want to talk too loud or too soft. There's so many teachings how you can change language, how you can improve speech. And by those principles, it helps us to identify how do I develop some right speech. And then going to next part is right action. Right action is related to how you do things with your body. Now there are a few things that you do wrong, right? One would be killing somebody, and if you kill somebody, that is considered harmful. Now killing is definitely harmful to yourself and to others. Yourself, because you're accruing some bad karma, and to others that they lose their life. Now taking precepts does not mean, okay, I'm observing 5 precepts, I'm not going to kill anybody, and that should be it. But Buddhist principle goes beyond that. Not killing is not enough. You have to advocate for life. You have to fight for how to promote loving kindness in the world. So that's one way. And the other part in right action is stealing, taking things that is not given. Now it could be material, it could be information, it could be wisdom. Now that can be a big problem. I work as an instructor, as a professor in this school, and we try to teach students not to steal intellectual properties of others. And if you do, you have to give proper credit to those individuals. And when you violate those rules, it can lead to many negative consequences. Academically, you can be expelled from school, you can be suspended from school, and intellectually, you're not gaining anything if you steal somebody else's knowledge. So one way to not take is that I'm going to advocate for generosity. I'm going to advocate for giving and sharing. That's another way to look at the opposite of stealing. And the third one is sexual misconduct, and that part is so important in marital life. You try to cultivate trust between those partners, and when you cultivate those trust, it could promote more peace and harm in that family. And the opposite of, taking stealing, opposite of illicit sex is like building that trust in that couple. I added Samma Ajiva and Samma Vayam here because Samma Ajiva, the life becomes, livelihood becomes right, or the right livelihood is possible when you think of these two: right speech and right action. Now, right livelihood is how is your life? And one way to test that, if you're living a good life, is that you need to ask somebody else to look at your life from their angle. Let them criticize, give you positive criticize about your lifestyle. And in order to change your quality of life, in order to change your morality, your virtues, sama vayam is important. I know it's in Buddhist description, you won't find Samma Vayama under Sila. It's normally in Panya. However, I like to put it here because right effort is so important for people, those who are the beginners. Now, if you're trying to become good Buddhist followers, or in general Buddhist human, you need to think, okay, how do I improve this? Now, Buddhism is very encouraging. If you look at the Buddha's life story, uh, one thing you will never find in Buddhist encounter is that the Buddha will never discriminate or uh, judge the person because of his or her past. Let's say the person has done the worst thing. He would not use the past to tell you what you are capable of, what you are going to get the consequences. He will give you some analysis. Sometimes he tell people, because of your negative, bad deeds, the person may go to some kind of negative consequences. But he always look at the present and also overcoming from those problems. One simple example: Venerable Angulimala. He murdered over 1,000 people before he was ordained as a monk, and he had a lot of that uh, belt hatred from other people, and also doing killing is one of the biggest problem he had. And when Buddha got the opportunity to talk to him and go to him and explain about the potential of his life, he did not use that 1,000 people killing as a way to judge him, like, you're a murderer, you can never become enlightened. He never did that. If you I can guarantee, in Buddha's stories, he will always look at what you can do now, what you can achieve in the future. He is not going to focus on what you have done in the past. Now, why I said that here is because if you have broken precepts, if you have broken those promises, that does not define you. That does not tell you, okay, you're doomed now, you cannot change. Of course, there are a few karma that should be very careful of. You don't want to, engage on, because they have very weighty consequences, uh, like murdering your parents, or splitting sangha. Those are some of the very severe, karmically powerful actions that can produce long-term negative consequences. Besides those karmic consequences, if you have broken some of the promises, my my taking from Buddhism is that yes, we break those precepts, but we try to improve. We try to generate more good karma. We try to improve our precepts, improve our life. Now, one more thing here in the effort is, how do we improve that aspect? So if you're trying to be a good human being, improve your morality, improve your virtues, is that uh, anupannang wa kusalanang anupadaya. I have never done certain bad things. I'm going to put some effort not to do those bad, unwholesome deeds. Right. And upannanang akusalanang, uh, when there is a unwholesome thoughts or unwholesome mind, the consciousness I have arisen, I'm going to put effort to remove those unwholesome consciousness. Anupannanang kusalanang upadaya. If I have any wholesome consciousness, wholesome ideas, good deeds that I have not done before, I'm going to try to generate that. Upannanang kusalanang biyo bhavaya. If I have any wholesome deeds, wholesome action that I have generated, I'm going to try to improve that. So the effort I added here is because when you look at the precepts, I have followed these five precepts and I try to keep them up. And every time I break them, I'm going to try to renew those precepts. And if you look at in now going back to like a five precepts in very quick way, these are five precepts we observe. I'm sure you guys you have heard this, you know, not to kill or hurt living beings physically, stealing that is not given, illicit sex, lying, and taking substances that would be intoxicating. So those are five precepts we hear: panatipata, veramani, and so on. Now, those five precepts are promised. To me, I wish that uh, Bantes, all the bhikkhus, and all the Buddhist scholars, they would also give these precepts in adjunct to the opposite side of these precepts. Now, these are the five abstinence virtues we try to observe. But what we are not told is, okay, don't do. Now, this negative term is good. It warns you what not to do. But I'm not sure if our Buddhist community or any other people, those who are interested in these principles, are aware there is the opposite side of these five precepts. When you observe these five precepts, you're also promising the opposite, which is if you don't take life, I'm going to advocate for loving kindness. Not killing, binding your hands, not killing those living beings is not enough. If you promise not to kill, you must promise to advocate for loving kindness. I'm going to support life. I'm going to tell people how to save life. I'm going to practice having no hatred toward other living beings and show love and compassion to those living beings. That should be the practice. That should be cultivation of virtues from Buddhist perspective. Now, stealing is bad. Stealing is taken away. We promise adinna dana veramani. I'm going to stay away from taking what is not given. But that is not complete precepts. What makes it complete is, since I'm not taking from other people, I'm going to share what I have. I have time, I have money, I have intelligence, I have many other resources I want to share with other people. That should be the promise. And this is not my idea. I'm not telling what I believe in. This is what you find in suttas. This is what you see in many suttas. Buddha explained the person who promised not to steal also promises, also advocates other people, don't steal, let's practice giving, let's practice generosity, because that's how Sila become complete. And illicit sex is sexually engaging with somebody who is married and somebody who is not your wife or husband. The opposite is like cultivating trust. How do I promote that connection between husband and wife, like the couple you hear in Buddhist stories like Nakula Mata, Nakula Pita? That's the couple. They lived almost 120 years, 80 years together, over 80 years together as a couple. And they went to the Buddha and they asked the Buddha, but I lived with this lady over 80 years. And same story from the lady. I lived with this man for 80 years. I want to live with him for longer. How do I uh, how do I plan to meet him in my next life? And Buddha give them advice. If you practice equal morality, samasaddha, samasila, samachaga, samapanya. If you practice equal morality, equal generosity, equal confidence, and equal wisdom, you can unite again. So, can we have that trust? Can we have that uh, same faith and same confidence toward our partner? That's the practice. Staying away from illicit sex, but also uh, practicing building that trustworthiness. And lying, not telling what is true. So the opposite of lie is truthfulness. How do I stay away from lies? When there is a lie, just not lying is not going to make it complete. Now, for example, if somebody is taking a vow, I'm not going to speak, that is not going to remove the problem. Buddhism and a Buddhist practice is not about, like, these passive individuals. Now, most people think that people, when those who are enlightened, they are so gentle, they're so slow, they're not moving, they're not saying anything, which is not true about arhantas. I wish I could talk more about arhantas, but in general, I want to make a statement that all these enlightened individuals, those who consider perfected ones, They are the most active individuals in this world. One example, during the second Buddhist council in first century, which is about now 2000 years ago, right? The 2000, about I think 2300, 400 years ago, when there was problem in Theravada Buddhism, after the Buddha's death, 100 years later, this teaching continued to promote by other monks, and there was a division between monks. There was some kind of mispractice in Buddhism, and when there was mispractice among Buddhist monks and Buddhist followers, Arhantas, the enlightened ones like Revata, Kakandaputta Revata, Venerable Revata, he witnessed some of the other monks, so-called monks, those who were using Buddhist ideas in a wrong way. When he saw that, he immediately gathered monks and called for counsel. He asked to, okay, we need to fix this. We need to fight against this non-teaching, non-Buddhist practices. And he united 8 monks, including Sabbakami Bhikkhu and also other scholar monks, and gathered and called for second Buddhist council. That was the Arahanta. During the Buddha's time, Venerable Mahakashyapa, who was away from temple for many years, after he heard that there was some kind of possible potential conflict in Theravada monks, he came out of the forest and he united monks and held the first Buddhist council. During the King Asoka in 3rd BC, 300 years later, Venerable Moggaliputta Tissa, he heard about the division between monks, and he joined with King Ashoka, Dharmashoka, and united and brought this third Buddhist council. Now, I'm giving these examples because those people who are in good practice of morality, they are not passive individuals. They are very active individuals who do not tolerate unjust, who do not tolerate unfairness, who do not tolerate wrong practices. They will speak up, they will advocate for good practices. So when you think of 5 precepts, it is not making you a passive Buddhist follower. The idea is, how do I see the opposite side? If I don't kill, okay, what do I do in therapy? And when I talk about different mental disorders in my classes and in my clinical practices, I don't just talk about, okay, you have to stop being sad. If you are depressed, you have to stop being sad. It's not going to solve the problem. Okay, if I have to stop something, what do I replace that with? If you have to stop drinking alcohol, well, if I have to stop drinking alcohol, what do I replace that with? So typically, we give them the two terms we use: adaptive behavior and maladaptive behavior. Whatever you do here as breaking those precepts could be considered as maladaptive behavior, something that is not adaptive. Why? It can cause distress to you, it can impair your life. If you can change that into adaptive behavior, which means you can reduce that impairment of your life, you can reduce distress in your life, that should be the practice. And the opposite of 5 precept is loving kindness, generosity, trustworthiness, truthfulness. And the last part is taking substance that intoxicates you. So what do I do? If I stay away from those kind of drinks, those kind of substances, what would be the best practice for me? Well, practicing mindfulness, enjoying the moment that you are in. Most people, I talk about substance use problem in my classes. I have the whole class about different types of substances, like like most popular, like alcohol, nicotine, smoking, other illicit drugs like cocaine, heroin, all these drugs. I'm sure it's pretty much a common problem across the world. Now, people, those who are into those drugs, they are not enjoying life. Why? Because as soon as you use those drugs, it takes away your awareness, your presence with the life. And you are in this la la land, you are in this like your own fantasy world, which you try to stay there. There's a whole bunch of neurological explanation. When you experience that high, that joy, it's very temporary, like Buddhist principle, it's very ephemeral. It won't last too long. As you pass by, within few minutes to few hours, that high will come down. What you do, you use it again, and you use it again, you continue reusing, you abuse, and you become addicted. Now, those substance is not going to give you that lasting awareness about your life. The opposite of that is, how do I bring this awareness? How do I bring this mindfulness in my life so I can enjoy what is happening around me? People complain, my life is so boring. My life is not fun, not much to do. That's where they go for drugs. Well, if you want to stay away from drugs, you need substitution. You need some adaptive behavior, which will be maybe finding some habits, something that is helpful to you. And those are the areas we look at as adaptive behaviors, and that makes precepts complete. That makes those precepts complete in our practice. And many other ways to look at the principles. I'm not going to go all of them because I think I'm closing to 1 hour. So there are many ways that you can cultivate precepts. This is from Sabbasava Sutta from Majjhima Nikaya. Uh, Many ways to stay away from problematic behavior. Sometimes by understanding. I mean, it goes in a lot more detail, but I like to just highlight a few things. By understanding. If you have hard time practicing precepts because maybe you don't know why those precepts exist, probably you need to look at the relationship between those practices. Let's say my practice is like I have to kill living beings for my living. Well, you can do that, but do you know the consequences? Do you know you have other options? So looking at the problem and trying to understand the relationship between you know things that I'm doing can increase more of this bad karma, as we believe in karma. So understanding can help to give up those defilements. Excuse me. And the second one is restraining. How do I stay away from those practices? By restraining myself. Well, I need to think. uh, okay, I need to think of how to restrain myself by looking at those my senses. I'm always up to entertain my senses. How do I stop that? How do I help myself control my senses? And that requires a little bit of knowledge, how our senses work. Anytime you think of seeing something, seeing does not mean it's all bad. Now, there's another idea in Buddhism we need to keep in mind, that Buddhism are so pessimistic. Buddhist followers are so pessimistic. They cannot enjoy life, which is not true. I strongly oppose that idea. We don't advocate pessimism. We don't advocate optimism either. Why? Because both of them have some extremities. It's not like the best thing. We are more realistic people. When you have senses, there are times Buddha enjoyed. When I say enjoyed, it's not like a pleasure, but he appreciated the beauty of our nature. There's one story, and I'll briefly mention this Pantasiki. This is the musician, divine musician. He came to the Buddha because he had to convince Buddha to visit his master. So he came to the Buddha and he did not know how to approach the Buddha. What he did was he started playing his music instrument while singing a romantic song. And Buddha was in the temple. He came out of his room and he observed Pantasiki playing his music and singing his romantic song. And when he was done with that music, he went to the Buddha went to the guy, Pantasiki, and he admired his talent of music, his talent of singing. So does that mean Buddha was like wrong? Well, not true. Buddha has that to restrain his senses. He knows how to appreciate the nature, appreciate the beauty of things rather than clinging on to those things. So Buddhism does not tell you to totally void yourself from all kind of those beauties, but how do you disconnect? How do you detach yourself from clinging on to it? That's what define removing, giving up by restraint, and giving up by using. We use so many things in our days. For monks, we have called for reflections for Prathaviksha. I love those Prathaviksha. Every time you eat, you have to remind yourself, Patisankhayo niso, Patisevami, Nevadavaya Namadaya. So they continues, Patisankhayo niso pindapata. If I'm eating something, I am eating with this awareness, Yoniso Patisevami, Nevadavaya namadaya namandanaya. I'm not eating to intoxicate myself. I'm not eating to beauty myself. I'm not eating to glorify myself. How beautiful that is. It goes on and on and on. At the end, it also says that Yavadeva imasakaya satitiya. I'm eating because I want to sustain my life. Imasakaya satitiya. And also continuing this journey of righteous lifestyle. So, is it limited to monks? I don't think so. We can also observe those, use it and also remain reflective. And the other part is like when monks use robe, monks use their house, their temple. There's a reflection. I'm using these objects so I can stay away from danger, stay away from problematic animals, wild animals. It protects me. So you can use those objects at the same time be reflective and reflecting defilements giving up by enduring some of the things that you have to endure. Sita unne tangsa makase. So things that you cannot stay away. Now in California these days, today it's going to be about 102 Fahrenheit degrees. It's very hot. Now one reason to not practice anything good or wholesome deed is saying it is too hot, too cold, too early, too late, too full, or too hungry. So these are six reasons people don't do what is good for themselves. And Buddhism tells, well, you have to endure some of them and let go of those defilements. Staying away from good practices could be because you cannot endure some of those ideas. And the two things Buddha add in there is one is harsh verbal speech from other people. Can you endure? Sometimes like a parusa vacha can come from other people, and also physical pain. Sometimes can you endure and not develop defilements? Defilement is something that makes you suffer more, and some of the defilements can be avoided. Like some of the avoiding can be wild animals, bad associates. You have to stay away from. Otherwise, you will go toward immoral practices. And the last one is giving up by dispelling. So you have to totally remove what do you remove? Strong emotions toward other individuals related to hatred. If you have like vihingsa vitaka, you want to hurt somebody, vyapada vitaka, you want to kill somebody, those kind of thoughts should be avoided by totally dispelling or totally removing. So these practices are, all these ideas. I think I added a lot of details here, is to help us. How do I recognize what principle I should follow, and when I fall behind, how do I come back to this path? And looking at Buddhist principles, what I practice, five precepts, is the best gift from the ancient time. It is also considered as the faultless gift. It is the best principle that we see. And it's not the Buddha's invention, it was there, but it also helped many other individuals before the Buddha. And it is the best gift from that ancient time. And the best person always look at themselves and also other people to tell how are you doing with your practice. And that's one practice we do, one principle that we see as a good friend. If you are following five precepts, you check in with each other. How are you doing? Katang buta same diwarating viti patantiti. That's one of the reflection for monks. Again, that principle applies to our life as well. How am I doing day and night in my life? So if you can spend at least 5 seconds to 10 seconds every day reflecting your day, reflecting, asking yourself, I want to improve my life. What have I done better from yesterday? That 5 seconds, that's 10 seconds can take you toward enlightenment. And the last remark I want to add here is all these precepts are, again, it's not fixed ideas. You don't have to perfect in one practice. As Buddhist, I believe in the samsaric journey. I have lived my many lives before. I will be living few more lives in the future. To me, it's like you're trying to accumulate all these wholesome practices to learn to let go, and this wholesome practice will be filled eventually, and it will help us to free from samsara. Because of this, like a journey, you find yourself like sometime you tell, I don't know if my samsara is going to end. If I ask myself, yes, it is going to end. Why? I always compare with my other fellow friends and other people that I live around, and I look at them, and compared to them, where is my understanding about this life? What is my understanding about life? in my samsara, we have been accumulating these wholesome practices. And for even for the Buddha, it took millions of lifetime to perfect. So we have a long way to go, but that does not mean you want to start stepping behind. Why? If you start stepping behind, you'll be saying yourself, oh, I might have seen the Buddha, I might have heard him talking, but I never put effort to reach to him and free myself from this samsara. So you don't want to be one of them. You want to be the person, yes, I heard him, yes, I saw him, yes, I listened to him, and I changed my life. And my life is way better. You don't need to die to experience that. That is possible in this very life. We call Ditta Dhamma Vedaniya. All those changes that you make about your precepts is very likely to be seen, to be noticed in this very life. You don't need to wait until you die and see the consequences. You immediately see the results, you immediately see the improvement in your life. And that's what we have to strive for, we have to head toward. So I hope those few ideas are helpful for you to think about cultivating uh, Sila as a paramita, and also improve your life from removing remorse to all the way to achieving that highest knowledge of enlightenment. So I'm going to look at some of the questions. What is the immediate what is the immediate karmic effects of telling lies for personal gain? I think the interesting question, the immediate karmic effects would be the shake in your mind. When you lie to somebody, instantly you immediately feel that guilt about not telling the truth. Now the motive was the gain. Of course, you will enjoy that motive because you wanted to gain something as the result of your lying, but inside that was not the truth. Now, because of those kind of situation, Buddha gave three principles to keep in mind. If nobody is watching you, there are three things that will be watching you. One, your own consciences. Number one. Now that's called Atta Dhamma. Atta Dhamma is yourself, your own mind awareness, that you know you're lying, and that's very dangerous. We call sampajana musawada. You're lying with awareness. That's very dangerous, and Buddha encouraged not to do that. And he gave a lot of analysis in Rahulovada Sutta. He used an empty cup, like I can use this. If this is like almost empty, uh, if somebody lies deliberately or with awareness, the person is as empty as this cup. And Buddha used that example, and he spilled that water over, and this is the teaching to his own son Rahula. And he asked, the person who lies is like upside down, you will never be filled with that good qualities. So those are the way to look at what kind of life you have when you lie deliberately. And the other immediate consequence, I think you're thinking about, what do you feel. It's hard to tell because karmic result does not uh, come as we think. You lie, you get the result right away. It's more accumulative because lie begets lies. If you start lying deliberately once, it becomes easier to lie next time. And there's a Pali Gatha in Dhammapada. The Buddha explained the worst thing that person can do is telling a deliberate lie, because those liars can do any kind of crooked or uh, dangerous karma because they can lie. So uh, you're just leading toward more of those harmful actions, and you will experience, I don't know, the karmically you will experience some sadness. So I'm going to come back to the idea I was sharing. So you yourself is the witness. And the second one is the Loka Dhamma. And the Loka Dhamma is people, those who are observing you, they know you for a long time. That could be um, that could be another way to see when you break some kind of principles. And Dhamma Dhamma, which is the nature of your action. The karmically you get the result because you lied to somebody, and the karmically there is some consequences. And the other long-term consequences, if you can think of, is the person who lies, they lose fame, they lose their popularity, they lose their likeliness by other people. So those are some consequences. I think I partially answered that question. And so the next question we have here is: we are all living in an open society where man and woman mix freely. As a result, some married men or women may lose control and commit adultery, resulting in broken marriages and family with children suffering. In your view, the third precept in Sila can prevent this misfortune. Simple answer is yes. That's the idea that Buddha was trying to promote. How do we avoid those long-term negative consequences? And when I don't know if you're referring to certain society, I don't think any society promotes adultery. It's actually considered more problematic in legal term than dhammic term, right? So yes, there are people, those who have like consensus sex, and they commit this adultery. But again, what is your day and night look like? That's one thing I would be reflecting on. Am I going to enjoy, am I going to engage in these activities, this action, because I want to enjoy that moment and forget about the future consequences? Or uh, I want to think about what will be the result of my karma. Now, in psychology, we talk about impulsivity and compulsivity. The people, those who are breaking the third precept, they're more of those impulsive individuals. They think about immediate gratification and immediate result. They don't look at the long-term consequences. And if you look at the immediate gratification, yes, that seemed to be fun. The same with the problem with drugs. People, those who do drug, they look at the immediate consequences. When they like the rush, they like that high experience, and they do it. Long term, what happened? They change their brain. They change uh, that how they perceive the world. Everything is changed. Now you might think that okay, it's just one time thing. There is no one time thing in these kind of activities. You will do once, it becomes starting point for more and more of those behavior. You let's say you commit adultery, and that one time is not over. It will be repeating, and the consequence of that behavior is definitely you're getting the result of that consequences. Of course, that's going to create more drama, and it continues. You're inheriting same thing to your children. So there's a lot of negative consequences it follows. And going back to the precepts, that's the attempt. So the precepts are not commandments. That's the Buddhist freedom. We don't use these precepts as you must do it, because we always advocate. We always try to tell people, well, these are the rules. And same with the Buddha's time. When he talk about Dhamma, he never says you must do A, B, and C. He always tells, well, if you do A, you get the result B. If you do X, the result will be Y. So you have to choose which path you want to go. And definitely, we try to advocate, we try to talk about these precepts to avoid those consequences. Now, this question: which precept you think is most easily be broken and why? I think any precept can be broken easily. Now, actually, if you think of those precepts, they are, again, they're not individual principles. They are actually connected to each other. Now, it may seem a little too simplified. I have this story that I used to tell when I was to give a lot of talks. So if you think that one precept, let's say some society thinks, oh, the fifth one, sura mere majapamada, taking substance that could intoxicate you is easily broken, and that's the one, we should remove it or we should change it. Well, not true, because in this story, this guy who was trying to practice celibacy, uh, he was presented with this lady, and she was a beautiful lady, and she came to this man. I call him sage. Let's say he was a sage. The recluse. He was trying to keep these five precepts. She came to this person, and uh, She didn't say anything, but she continued to attend him. And she came to his place, cleaned his place, and developed that good trust with this recluse. As time passed, the recluse started developing, strong, uh, positive thinking about this lady. And one day, the recluse asked, "You have served me so well. You can ask me anything you want from me." The lady asked, "And I'll come next day, and you choose what you want to do." And the lady came next day. She asked to she brought a goat, and she dressed up nicely, and she brought a barrel of alcohol, and she convinced the monk, the recluse, to use one of them. And the recluse had to choose one over the other. Either you have sex with the lady, or drink that alcohol, or kill that goat and eat, and or just be a liar by not doing any of them, because he promised to do one of them. And he ended up drinking alcohol, then he ended up killing that goat, and ended up having sex with that lady. So I know it's not a very good story, but the idea is all those precepts are connected. If you kill somebody and you have those precepts already taken, now you're breaking the precepts, so that you become a liar. And in order to kill somebody, you have to have strong emotions, that strong hatred, and it intoxicates you. I'm trying to be very careful, not to take one principle as less important than the other. They are interconnected. And in killing, you already involved, you're intoxicating your mind, something with the anger. It's a very dangerous chemical that can produce more harm. And you lied, and you broke the precepts. And you take something that is not given, that is someone else's life. So one precept can damage many other principles. And that's why we want to think these precepts, all of the precepts are equally powerful, equally important, equally dangerous. All of them are likely to break. Killing somebody, hurting somebody seems like the hardest thing to do, but not true, not really true. We might do that. Uh, Sometimes verbally we can hurt the people, and you can in Buddhist principle there is one situation, very serious principle of the Buddha for monks. Actually, if you advocate of committing suicide, you will be committing that crime. So in one of the most powerful tool, uh, venerable the Buddha told, if you talk about the goodness or the importance of killing or committing suicide, then you also break that principle. I'm trying to word it in English. So, maranangwa maranawannang bahasaya. If you praise death, that can be equal to you breaking the highest principle of parajika. So, just verbally, you can do that. So, any of those precepts are likely to break. And um, one big reason to break these precepts is that weakness in effort. So, you ask why people are likely to break not one or a particular precept, but all of them, is that your effort is weak. You don't put enough effort. You just want to be a passive follower, and you don't try to look at the remedy part, which I talked in my previous slide. The observance part. That's where it's likely to break. You just stay away from killing, and you never think about practicing uh, loving kindness. Then it's more likely to break the first precept. You just try to stay away from stealing, and you never practice generosity. Then stealing is likely to break. So on and so on with the other five precepts. So I think the reason is there. When you lack good quality, you're likely to have this bad quality come up. Now, this question is always tricky, right? I love gardening, but sometimes I have to get rid of pests. Have I broken the first precept? It's a tricky question for us, and I always get one, and I was expecting one, because killing can be harmful. But here, now, I will focus on your intention. Your intention, it could be garden, it could be your home. Let's say this is one common question I used to get when I give talk about these precepts, is that uh, when you look at your house. You have cockroaches, you are insects, and you have a baby in your house. Now I need to choose, who do I save? Now, if you are advocating safety of your children, you try to remove those pests, then you are not doing strong bad karma. It I'm not the person to judge whether it is a strong or poor bad karma. My intention is not to kill, but to protect the children. And same with the gardening. If you're trying to do some gardening and if you hurt somebody, some living beings, your goodness is larger than your bad karma. Now, there's another example I can try to explain this idea. You're a doctor. Let's say you're a doctor and you're doing a surgery. And when you do surgery, you have to cut the patients, right? When you cut the patients, you know there is a chance that patient could die. But your intention is to protect the patient, not to kill the patient. Let's say by accident the patient died. Now, is it going to be a bad karma to you? I can tell confidently no. Why? Your intention was to protect the patient, not to kill. So, when you have that intention to do larger good, larger goodness, you're less likely to commit those crimes. And when you do larger good karma, in Pali there is a phrase, yassa papang katang kamang kusalena pitiyati, so imang lokang pabasiti abba mutto chandima. So people, those who do greater good karma, they're likely to remove or destroy some of those minor bad karmas. Yassa papang katang kamang kusalena pitiyati. Doing practicing wholesome deeds can remove some of those minor. Now, I'm not trying to tell, oh, you can do all bad things and do good thing that will cancel out the bad ones. Not true. I'm just talking about those some of the minor offenses can be overcome by doing larger wholesome practices, right? We talk about freedom in thinking, especially in Buddhism. We talk about freedom of choice. And before any country that became free country or freedom of thinking, Buddha promoted that freedom of thinking, freedom of choice, freedom of mentality. He even allowed to question many things about the Buddha himself, which is not allowed in many religion. You cannot talk about your teacher, you cannot question your teacher, but Buddha always advocate, question about your teacher. Now, when you think of that, it's your choice. Why does the man do not practice precepts easily? Is it's your choice. It's up to the person whoever is having hard time. Why it's a question to ask yourself. Why I'm having hard time practicing? Probably, maybe if you're looking for a solution, and if somebody's looking for a solution, that could be, am I trying too many things at the same time? Let's say there are five precepts and it's hard to keep me all five together. Am I trying to do all at once? Is that why it's making harder? Or am I just trying to not do bad and totally stay away from good ones? Maybe that could be another reason. So one solution I can think of, it's a long journey. So if you're trying to practice all at once, try to start with one, doing less harm. Let's say whichever you want to choose. I'm not going to put in the same order. There are five, you choose one. I'm going to start telling the truth. That's my promise for myself for one day. And there's another way to do. Don't try to do for like whole year. Start one day and observe yourself. Watch yourself how you did. And if you did broke that promise, probably you need to renew it and think, okay, if I broke that promise, why did I break? Well, because I forgot to look at the observance part, which is the actual practice. So you look at the other side. Start simple, start with one or two, try to keep it short, and look at the observance, the opposite of precepts. Like, am I having hard time not killing or hurting people? Then probably because I don't have adaptive part, which is like, I want to be kind. Think of that way. Instead of thinking, I don't want to kill living beings, think of, I want to be kind to other people. That might sound easier. I don't want to steal versus I want to be more generous. And the other part is like, I don't want to engage in this illicit sex. Well, I want to develop trust in my family. That could be easier to practice. And you will find your principles to do that. I don't want to lie. Well, I need to promote for truth. And if I don't have anything meaningful to say, I'd rather be quiet. That's what Buddha told us. Either you spend time talking about meaningful thing, that's like Dhammiya Katha wa Aryovato Nimbao. Observe novel silence if you have nothing meaningful to say. And the last part is I don't want to intoxicate myself. Well, then I have to practice mindfulness. I have to stay focused in the present moment. So those are some ways you might find uh, bring those principles, bring those virtues in your life.
Thank you, Professor. I think we have come to the end of our this evening's Dhamma sharing. I think it was an excellent sharing because you had actually spoken from a perspective of a Buddhist monk, that from your past experience, and now as a lay person. And I think you brought a different dimension to the topic at hand, which is the Sila Paramita. And I'm sure our audience also appreciated. I see the very good comments with regards to your sharing this evening. So before we end, could we request Professor Sailesh to share the merits with the Devas as well as the departed beings?
Okay, can do that together. So it's a Buddhist practice that when we do Dhamma talk or any kind of righteous, wholesome practice, we share merit with all those departed ones and all the devas that we believe in, the righteous devas, those who protect us. And let's share that merit with all those beings and all the departed ones. May they gain this merit and may they enjoy their lives and may they continue to promote and protect this Dhamma, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Akasattha ca Bhummattha Devanaga Mahittika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chirang Rakkantu Loka Sasanang. Akasattha ca Bhummattha Devanaga Mahittika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chirang Rakkantu Desanang. Akasattha ca Bhummattha Devanaga Mahittika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chirang Rakkantu Mang Parang. Idam me nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idam me nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idam me nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idam me punyang asavakya wahang hotu. Sabba dukha pamunchatu. Sabba bhaya pamunchatu. Sabba roga pamunchatu.
Thank you, Professor Stylish. So we've come to the end of this evening sharing. So on behalf of the Committee of Management, as also the members of the Mahasangha of the Buddhist Mahavihara, and also to the sponsors this evening for this evening's Dhamma sharing, and all those who have joined us and who had paid attention to Professor Sailesh, I wish you a very pleasant evening and a very good day. Thank you, Professor, once again.
Thank you for having me, and I would
Our
thank
pleasure.
and also the temple, and especially thank to Bente Chandananda for connecting with this
Yes,
whole group.
Bhante Tanjananda for introducing us to you.
Yeah.
So now we have a new speaker that and resource that we can fall back on when we need help.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
So have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.